Do you use an electric toothbrush?
I do.
Okay.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've tried different
awesome.
ones, actually.
I have too. I'm kind of obsessive about my teeth, though. So.
Oh, really? We have wonderful teeth.
Thank you.
I
I had
understand.
braces for like 2 years.
I had 2 sets of braces.
Did you? Why?
I had a huge gap between my teeth. Like, these teeth had a huge gap, and then the other ones had a huge gap. So then I had a first set of braces that brought them all together. And then, like, right as I went through puberty, like, they went full on and put them all over. And then I did, like, the real. So they had to put them together first before they could.
And then straighten them out.
Yeah. What I'm interested in is really how did you come to this project? How did you get to this material? And how did you, why were you fascinated in it in the first place?
I didn't know you were going to segue into an actual serious question, so I
Why
was
not?
still dicking around a bit. Okay. But to answer that question, I read this script. It was, I, Tonya was a script on spec. It was later released on the blacklist. But it was an available script, and when I read it, it was just one of the best scripts I've ever read in my life. It was very original, very unconventional, very scary, which made it exciting as well. Like, how the hell do you pull this off? And obviously had an incredible character at the center of it, but also a lot of incredible characters around her. And I don't really enjoy, I don't like acting on my own. I really, in fact, any scene where I'm on my own, that makes me really scared.
But you are incredible in the scene in front of the mirror where you're putting on your makeup. That scene,
Thanks.
I mean, maybe you should be doing more of the things that you don't feel comfortable with. Because
no, that's true.
That scene in front of the mirror is such beautiful work.
Thanks.
Like, such beautiful work.
That was kind of improvised in the moment, actually. Our DP, Nico, was just like, get her to look at camera and just be getting ready. And yeah, and then I don't know, it was like an overwhelming day anyway, and then it turned into like the crying, but yeah, it was one of those weird moments on set that actually translated well on screen.
It's beautiful. And the mirror is such an interesting thing for an actor, where vanity is such a large part, I think, though we try and pretend like it's not, of what we do, either trying to avert it or trying to sort of move towards it or whatever it is. And it's so interesting when you have an idea of someone, or you have an idea of a character that they're playing, and then all of a sudden that character is put in front of a mirror, and then they have to sort of, you yourself have to face yourself, and then you also have to face all the things that you are dealing with in the character that you're playing. And I felt like in that moment, it was so, I'm always so moved by people and the risks that you take, not only in character, but as a person. And that's what I felt in that moment. I was like, you were really risking a lot with this. And it seemed like you did a lot as a producer and also as an actor on it. And you put yourself into it fully. And it feels like, not to say that moment is like the microcosm of the whole thing, but it is really telling to see how much you cared and how much she cared, and like how much pressure was on her, how much pressure is on you. I mean, I love that. I like, as an actor, I'm eating that up. Like, I will say it one last time, it's beautiful work.
Thanks. Thank you. I mean, I feel like there's similarities in what we went through, and that we were both playing real life people in a situation that didn't happen that long ago. And there's obviously the added responsibility when you play a real life person who's still alive. And that was like an interesting thing to tackle, and I'm sure you had a different experience and I'm guessing a very emotional experience because of his story. But how was it playing Jeff and playing a real life person and just that story in general?
It was a huge responsibility. I felt like a pressure beyond a pressure I've ever felt in terms of playing a character, because you're, like you said, you want to do the situation the service that it deserves. What is the truth, right? Like, what is being honest? What is respecting the situation while at the same time illuminating what's real, And in the case of Jeff, I think, you know, he was struggling with trying to, you know, he's a guy who was standing there holding a sign for his girlfriend that he was sort of had just broken up with and then gotten back together with, and he was like trying to show her that he was committed to her and that he could show up. And he shows up, and then all of a sudden he's there when the explosion happens, and then he wakes up and he loses both of his legs. So I think he was just trying to recalibrate everything, and everything happened so fast. Not just that, like within a year, people were, write a book, you know, oh, write a book about your story. And then it was like, be this symbol for all these people. Oh, wait, they want to make a movie of it, you know? And I think I felt that from him. And I felt like I didn't want to pressure him too much, but there was this massive responsibility to get it right. And I think, I'm sure you understand, like, what is the truth is always so complicated. And what I always find interesting is you always want to empathize with whoever you're playing. That's like the seeming job of what we do, is to say, how do you love this person? And yet they've done things that are hard or tough on people or have been incredibly complicated in the world, and yet you have to stand with them in some way.
So what are you two Amesbury ladies slumming it here for anyway?
I'm collecting donations for the marathon.
No
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
You got a jar, huh? With pictures of yourself. That's so great. So you show people pictures of yourself and then you ask for money.
Yes.
In terms of you, like how the truth of the situation, loving her, I'm sure you love her.
Yeah.
Did you spend time with her? Did you?
By the sounds of it, I didn't. Not the way I think you might have. I actually wanted to keep a bit of distance. I knew that if I met her and liked her, I would never play this character properly.
Yeah.
I would be sugarcoating her flaws. I'd be trying to like justify the bad things that she may do or say in a situation, and I didn't want to do that because I'm a people pleaser and I know it. And I just like so I really needed to know that it was a character and not a person that I was playing. So even though that doesn't sound like what I was doing, sense. But it needed to be like that in my head. I had to have them completely compartmentalized in different places in my brain. So there was the character of Tonya, and then there was the person that I'm telling their story, and there's the responsibility to do their story justice. And it's a weird thing to try and make something entertaining, and entertaining doesn't always mean funny or happy. But it
is funny. I mean,
but there are funny moments and there's horrible moments. It's like life. It's entertaining, but to entertain in a meaningful way, I don't think you can really do that if you're sugarcoating something, and I didn't want to do that. So I did all my character prep before meeting her. So and there's so much footage on her from 15 to the age she is now. So that was an amazing resource. I could study her mannerisms, her dialect, you know, the story, everything she went through, her life. I could do all my research. I could do all my prep. And I wanted to have that all done and decide exactly how I was going to play the character, every single beat, and then meet her. And to meet her, I didn't want it to feel like research. I didn't want to meet her and change any of the decisions I had already made. I'd already kind of done that. I'm not going to change it now. And then I met her pretty much just so I could say, hi, I'm playing a character, and I want you to know that there's a difference in my mind between the character I'm playing and you. And I just hope you understand that when you one day see this movie, that because I can't let that hold me back on set.
But I think it portrays her in a. I think you were all very kind and thoughtful and respectful of her situation, and I also think that the movie exists in a tone. The tone of the movie is like just slightly off from reality in that space, you know. So I think it allows for you to enjoy it, like you're saying. I think it is really entertaining to watch because you're rooting for this person, you're laughing with them and at them too, and all the characters around her. But I think in the meantime, you're really being really respectful of her story and really of other people who are affected by all this stuff too. So
it was the fact that it wasn't a traditional biopic gave us the freedom to like really go for things on set, and you hear the story from so many different people's perspective that when we're telling Tonya's version, it's 100% what I'm saying. But when we're telling Jeff's version, you know, I'm acting the way he said that Tonya acted in that scenario, even though Tonya didn't. I mean, the whole thing was born out of these interviews that Stephen, our writer, did with both Tonya and Jeff that totally contradicted each other. Both their stories contradicted each other completely. And that was the structure of the film, to kind of have these unreliable narrators, it would seem, because their stories kept, you know, contradicting each other. And I loved that, and it did give that freedom on set to be like, you know, this is now someone else's version of the story, so I'm going to play it totally different right now.
Did you find yourself while you guys were shooting, did you find yourself like take to take, pushing it a little farther? Because I could, you know, there are these long one-take shots, a lot of them, sometimes probably are merged post and things like that, but I feel like maybe in those spaces, did you just say, okay, I'm going to go farther, and then I'm going to push it farther, then I'm going to bring it back, I'm going to push it farther? Or was there, like when you say you made very specific choices, did you make those choices early on, or did you make them, change them a little bit on the day? Or
I mean, it always, like, you know how it is on set when, like, sometimes a situation just escalates, especially when you have, like, co-stars like Sebastian and Allison, who, like, don't hold back at all, and we would kind of, like, know how to provoke one another in a really, like, respectful way, but we knew when to change the line and say something different that would take it to the next level. So it always escalated, but it always escalated in a very organic way. So it never felt over the top. It never felt melodramatic, because as long as you have utter conviction, it feels true. When it stops feeling true, that's when I think, even if you're not doing it, even if you're not screaming, but it doesn't feel true, then I think people stop. You know, it doesn't seem like you're doing good acting, I suppose. So no matter how big we got with these characters, having utter conviction in our point of view, which was the coolest thing about the script, is everyone had their point of view, their truth that they were sticking to. Like the name of it is I, Tonya, this is my version. He's like, oh, well, I'm Jeff and this is my version. You know, to have that utter conviction meant that we could get bigger and bigger. And I mean, it also helped that we had footage, like, especially for someone like Alison Janney, who's playing the mum, Lavana, who has a fur coat and a bowl cut and giant glasses and a bird on her shoulder. And if we had, you know, suggested that to Alison on the day, maybe she'd be like, guys, I think this is kind of overkill, or maybe on the nose, or whatever. But the fact that we have footage of Tonya's mum wearing a fur coat with a bird on her shoulder and all that stuff, I mean, the people themselves gave us the liberty to really go for it, because we had that footage and we knew that that's what they did and said at the time. And
man, I wish Jeff's mom had a bird on her shoulder.
She's such a good character. Talk about like great mums in the film. She was
mums.
Well, great in.
Let's talk about our moms.
Sense.
No, yeah.
How was she to work with?
Yeah, I was just thinking if we had footage like that, it would have been incredible. I only had footage of Jeff that the New York Times had done, really like about a month and a half after, you know, maybe a little bit longer after Jeff had gotten out of the hospital, and he was just sort of trying to figure out his life. And I had asked Jeff, you know, they won a Pulitzer, the guys who did this piece on him, and I asked Jeff if he could get me all the outtakes of all of this stuff, because I could really see how he was moving around the world at that time, which I can, in spending lots of time with him, I could do it day to day, you know, before we were shooting and prep, but I just had no idea what he was like before. There were only a few photographs, there were only stories people told, and everybody wanted the story to be a particular thing, so you kind of had to pull apart all the enmeshment of the family and everybody's idea of that day in particular, and then everything after it, and then, you know, in the way, it's interesting, in your film, I think it was a group of people who were very aware of the choice that they were going into. They were very aware of the fact that, you know, she wanted to be, you know, she wanted to win gold. She wanted to do those things. And in the case of someone like Jeff, this is a group of people who had you know, he was fine just working at Costco.
Thrust into the limelight.
Yeah, he was just like, and his family was like, what is this? Who are we when that happens? I mean,
I think they're both a product of their environment too. I mean, their upbringing obviously affected the people they turned into, and then affected the way they handle a situation like fame when it was kind of unwanted, perhaps. And
you should have seen the sign I made for you. What did it say? Had like 3D letters and everything.
I have a few questions. How much time did you spend with him? When did you meet him for the first time, and how was that? And also, how did you jump onto the project because you produced it as well. Your first producing venture?
My first, my company produced it.
Yeah.
I produced other movies, but this is the first film that my company produced, yeah.
And so did you know when reading the script that you wanted it to be a producing vehicle and an acting vehicle, or
no,
it just turned out that way?
I mean, we have, we're pretty ambitious and we have a lot of different projects in development, but this was one that I had read very early on as a very early draft before any filmmakers on it and thought, this character is incredible. I was laughing 3 or 4 pages into it, and I was surprised by that because I thought this was going to be a different kind of character. And then I called up Eric Feig at Lionsgate, and I said, hey, I really want to do this. He said, let me find a filmmaker first. And so they went to David Gordon Green, and then when David came on, he said he wanted to come to me, and then we met up. And then there were sort of 2, at a certain point, all of a sudden this other Boston movie came up. And everybody sort of was a little like, what's going to happen? And we, being the sort of smaller duck, we kind of felt things slipping. And so I brought the script to the company that finances my company. We had just sort of...
Focus, right?
No, to Bold.
Sorry. Bold.
Yeah. And I said, do you guys want to do this? And they said, yes. And then all of a sudden we were, producing the film with Todd Lieberman and Mandeville, his company. So it was like, I had initially just come on as an actor, and then by bringing financing, then started producing, and now I haven't slept for 2 years.
I feel you.
Yeah.
I also have not slept in so long. Did you understand, because I didn't really understand the full scope of what a producer does until I'm now in the thick of it. And it's like 24/7, every minute of the day. It's so rewarding, I'm sure you find as well, but it's also so hard, and I never really gave producers the credit that they probably deserve.
I don't think that producers get the credit that they deserve unless they're up there at an award show getting an award,
And but even then everyone's like, what, you showed up for a couple of days on shoot, and and it's like, well, no, you spend years of your life, like years of it on a project.
Which is why I understand people going like, what are you actors trying to get into this space? But I mean, I grew up in... My mother produced films that she wrote, and so I saw the consistent failure that is producing. More than any job on a film set or in pre-production or post or anything, it is just it's like a sort of seemingly like strange, just constant failure, and then all of a sudden you seem like maybe you're halfway up the mountain. It's like occasionally a day is great, you have a great day, and all these things go really well, and then the rest of the week is just like everything seems to be falling apart. But it actually gives me great patience as an actor in particular, because I think you realize that in these moments where one little thing becomes a big deal, it's really not at all. And eventually the organism of something is supposed to head in the direction it's going, and you really don't have that much control over it.
I mean, you've been in the business a lot longer than I have. Your first job was when you were 11?
11,
I believe. So how long? 20 years? More than 20 years?
Arithmetic. Yeah.
But you've been doing it for a really...
like almost, yeah.
Did you, and you come from a family who's, heavily ingrained in the film industry, I'm correct in saying?
Yeah, I mean, my immediate family, yeah. Yes.
So did you, well, one thing I wanted to know was there a conscious choice to become an actor? Or do you think you grew up in the, like, if you grew up and no one in your family was in the business, do you think you would have found your way into the business anyway? Or do you ever wonder what you'd be doing if you weren't doing this?
Absolutely, I definitely do.
What do you think?
But it's, I don't know, you ask those questions at different times. I mean, I think I don't really know, because that's why I'm an actor and why I'm like playing different parts and pretending like I'm doing a real job. Yeah. But I think that, it's also this crazy blessing that is really a lot about luck. And I'm sure you feel that way too. It's like, you find yourself in a position where you've had a lot of luck, and that makes me feel very grateful. But being around this business my whole life, I think there are a lot of aspects that feel like family. I think we all come to this space one way or another to find different families, and then we do in in different.
Do you get this? Because every time I do a job, I tell myself before, I'm like, don't get attached to everyone. Like, you do this every time, and every time the job ends, you're so upset and devastated. Don't do it this time. And then I harden myself to it. And then, like, 2 weeks in, I'm in love with everyone, and we're a big, happy family, and I never want it to end. And I'm a week away from finishing the film I'm working on now. And I'm
like heartbroken.
I'm already getting that, like, I'm so scared about finishing because I just don't want to leave everyone. Do you get that after this many years?
I try not to end it. Yeah. I try not to end it. I like this movie. You know, in the space, I'm still friends with Jeff. We're all still in it. You know, we talk almost every day. You know, so I think it's that thing where I think now I've tried to sort of. I was working with an actor once, and he said to me, "There comes a moment where you have to realize that this is your life when you're on a set. If you have the opportunity to work like this, and stop fooling yourself that you're going to go off and." He's like, figure out what the things that you like. He said, I like to cook when I come home. Mm-hmm. So I would always like to find an apartment in the city I live in because that's my life and what I like to do. I like to play the guitar and I like to cook. And that's what I decided. I thought, wow, yeah, we all kind of live in this space where like, we're gonna get to that, and really you're in that space. That's mm-hmm. That's what I've realized. But I will say, like, did you feel, because it's interesting in thinking about these two characters, they were both kind of thrust into the spotlight in a particular way. First, initially for your character because of her choice, and then also because of the event that happened in a whole different light. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, she became somebody totally different.
You're so fucking pretty.
Do you relate to her? Like, do you relate to that idea?
That was something she asked me about when we met. You know, she said, how are you dealing with fame and being famous? And it was very kind of her to ask because, to be honest, I was like, your situation was horrible, and it happened to her so young. And I think what made the biggest difference in the world was she didn't have a support network around her, and I do, and I'm so lucky. I didn't start working professionally until I had finished high school. Like, I had a very clear bookend from my childhood to my adulthood, from my life outside of the film business. And
you have always been very clear about that. Your life and your work is very important to you.
Yeah,
separating those two things.
It is, and my friends and my family, and no one is connected to the business whatsoever. And I guess it's bittersweet living outside of Australia because I miss everyone so much. But the fact that they are so removed from it helps me keep my life and my work separate, even though they are intrinsically linked because all I want to do is work all the time. Like, it's honestly, I never complain about it. I love it. I just want to be on set all the time. But she, becoming famous at her age without a support network around her and without that clear distinction, I think would have been incredibly difficult. And I'm grateful that I have people around me, great people around me, both like my team in the business and my family and friends outside the business. So yeah, it's a weird thing, and it's, you can never presume what it's going to be like until you're actually in it. But you adapt and be grateful for the things you have.
I think that's true. I learned from Jeff that he didn't ask for those things. He didn't ask for the attention and to become that thing, but he has slowly evolved into being able to hold that idea for people. And to see
I felt that in
hope.
the film so much. The moment when you really see the characters, his mindset really transitioned from resenting the position he's been put in, not just physically and the horrible trauma that brought, but having that responsibility to be the beacon of hope to everyone is a huge responsibility that he never asked for. He didn't ask to be that guy, and that was heartbreaking to watch. And I was in tears in the moment when he's at the Red Sox game, and you can just see that he suddenly realizes that the responsibility he has and the positive impact he can have on the people around him by just listening to their story and shaking their hand. And I was bawling by that part. I mean, there's a lot of parts in the film that made me cry, but that one to me was so moving and important. And it's, like I said earlier, like, I guess in this business we want to entertain, but we want to entertain in a meaningful way. And that moment in your film just feels very meaningful, like one of those films you finish and you're like, I'm so glad I feel like I went through that, and I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I watched that, and I feel yeah, it's
That
very
means a lot.
emotive.
Thank you. That's really sweet of you to say. I think that movies bring and can bring joy, and I think that that's what I feel Jeff showed me, is that his spirit, when you get touched by him or you're around him, or if he were here, you'd feel so happy to be alive, and also just, he has such a great sense of humor and makes all my petty crap seem like petty crap, and all the things I take super seriously. I think he just always puts it in perspective for me in this way, and I don't know if he was like that even before this situation. He may have just had that in him, but I think we can only learn how we move people from other people, I think, in a lot of ways. You can see how people respond, and it means so much to me that the movie moved you, and you should know how much your movie moved me. And I think that's really important for us to tell each other, all of us, to share that and to connect, because I feel like, what else are we making movies for?
Yeah, exactly.
You showed the world that they can't f***ing break us no matter what the hell they do. It gave me a little hope, made me feel a little better, and I just want to say thank you for that, man. That's all.
What's your name?
My name's Larry.
Can you imagine if Dr. Johnny, I don't know if you've seen that movie, but Dr. Johnny, who I play in Okja, met Harley Quinn? That would be...
I haven't seen Okja yet, but I did hear that your character's very...
I feel like we wore the same shorts, maybe?
You saw my outfit? I knew this was going to happen.
Maybe your socks, maybe I did.
Get your own outfit. No, I really want to see it, because I did hear you did
You can't already hear it. It's still happening. It's so loud. You might be able to experience it now.
What?
The performance. I'm kidding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was it really?
Yeah, it's just a little bit.
Did you enjoy that? Do you think of yourself as a character actor, or?
I think that in the case of that, it was, to me, it was that role was so polarizing to people. Some people thought it was great, and some people thought it was horrible, and that was exactly where I want to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you live in a place where creativity gets sort of washed through this thing where it's supposed to please everyone, and in the space of making choices there. I mean, I remember walking out in the outfit in New York City, because we've been shooting in Korea. I wore this crazy outfit. And I remember walking out, and everyone's like, there are paparazzi out there. And I was like, this is how I've always wanted to look in front of photographers. It's like, it feels like you want to be able to make bold choices that throw things off for yourself, right? And then you also sort of throw things off for others. It was super fun. And Bong Joon-ho is an incredible director, and the movie's so moving, so.
Do you want to keep doing kind of outlandish characters like that? Have you always wanted to do that, or are you going to continue to do that?
That's how I wake up in the morning. That was just me.
And then you just chill yourself out for the...
for the actor on actor interview, I'm forced to put on a suit and come here and act like,
All responsible and serious.
Responsible and serious, yeah. What about you? I mean, aren't you doing another one? Yeah,
I hope to be playing Harley again at least next year. I love her. I love any character that doesn't. Every character I play doesn't feel like I don't feel like myself, and that's why I like doing it. Which is why it's so weird when people want to know about you, because you're like, but wait, my whole job is not
I'm always
being
like, I don't know.
Me, I don't know. I'm boring, but these characters are amazing. Ask about them. And Harley's one of those insane characters, and people do seem to really like her. So I hope I get to keep playing her. But no, I love that, and it's so nice. Right now, I'm working on an indie film that we're producing as well. It's a $6 million film, and a very small crew, and a second-time film director, and I love it so much, but the idea that I get to do that and then walk onto a $100 million film set with pyrotechnics and all that crazy stuff, and have my baseball bat and do a totally different thing is just, and it just occurred to me, we've both worked with David Ayer.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
End of Watch, by the way, was one of my favorite films, and the reason I signed on for Suicide Squad was because I love End of Watch so much, and I saw it about 4 times at the cinema.
That was a really special.
Don't know if I ever told you that.
You didn't ever tell me that.
Didn't I? I must have been too embarrassed.
Just in front of the camera.
Just so you know, Jake and I go way back to yesteryear, and that's something else I wanted to ask you. So when we met, did we decide it was 5 or 6 years ago?
I don't know, 6 probably, I think.
A while ago.
Yeah.
And you were doing a play in New York.
And you were about to start Wolf
And
of Wall
I had
Street.
my first day of Wolf of Wall Street the next day.
Oh, that's right. Oh, wow.
And you were like, wait, why are you out tonight? Why don't you go? And I was like,
Yeah.
I'm just so scared. I like need to keep my mind
I was
off
like,
it.
you look really tan too.
Yeah, I was like,
It's
I've
winter
got a spray
time.
tan.
Yeah.
And these nails. My life for the next 6 months. Oh, the smell like still haunts me. But you were doing theatre, and I loved that play. I loved you in it. You were so good, and I haven't yet had the chance to do theatre, and it's something I plan on doing. And I was wondering, what do you feel like you get out of doing theatre that you don't doing film, and vice versa? And will you be returning to the stage?
It was a very long name of a
If
play.
I'm there, you're there, and
If
we're there.
there is, I haven't found it yet.
If there is, I haven't
That's the
found
name
it
of
yet.
the play that I was doing.
I remember your performance, just not the title of the play.
Yes, thanks. It was by Nick Payne, who's a wonderful British playwright. And I then did his other show called Constellations, which is really kind of a masterwork. And
With Ruth Wilson.
With Ruth Wilson, yeah. Yeah, I think the stage, I think we're all different. We're all different animals, you know. I think that I admire people who can really, movie acting is very particular. It's almost like these little sprints. It's like delivering in a very short period of time something magical, something, you know, dense and full of choices, you know, and sometimes it takes some choices to do that and a lot of mistakes along the way. It's a much more imperfect process in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like on stage there's the animal that you have to be is a very different one. It's sort of a much more, it's an endurance animal, and I feel like there's preparation before, and the choices are made through, I think the messy part is much earlier on.
Right.
And so to me, I feel like you're also tested in that space for your bold choices can be made, and you have to make them bolder. And working in the theater has made it possible for me to make more confident, bolder choices when I'm on set, because I don't really care about all these people here. They are people, we are connecting in a different way. It's not like it's judgment, it's like it's something else. So sometimes I used to feel that way before I did more theater work, is when I was on set, I was always like very sensitive to people watching, you know.
What they thought of your performance or what you were doing?
No, I just think it's weird. You know, here we are talking and we're on a set, and half of this set is there, and then the other half is like
Let's
all
be
these
honest,
people.
most of them are on their iPhones, like playing like Candy Crush or something.
They really don't look like it. They look pretty interested.
You guys asleep yet?
4 of them are like,